Mario is arguably the most recognisable video game franchise in the world, and its characters have become so iconic it would genuinely be harder to find a person who doesn't know who Princess Peach or Yoshi is. These aren't incredibly complex characters, but their charm shines through, and it's no wonder we are so attached to them. Whether it's Luigi's lovable cowardice, Rosalina's calm, understated manner, Bowser's mix of goofy and somehow insanely threatening, or, well, whatever Waluigi is meant to be, the cast of the Mario franchise is classic and hard to beat. Toad, it could be argued, is one of the most iconic and beloved parts of the franchise. He, alongside Mario, Peach, Luigi and Bowser, was present in Super Mario Bros. And has appeared in damn near every mainline or spin-off Mario game ever since, including every Mario Kart, Mario Party, Paper Mario, and so on, in some form at least. He is one of the cornerstones of the franchise, which is kinda weird considering he doesn't actually exist. You see, Toad as a character is a really interesting topic to delve into. It's well known that Toad is the name of the species as well as the character, but where does the species end and the character start? Does it? How often can we look at a specific Toad and say, that is the Toad? That is what I seek to answer today. So let's start with a pretty simple answer. This is Toad. This guy, the one you play as in Mario Kart and Mario Tennis and so forth, this is Toad. Pretty unambiguously. But the thing is, these are spin-offs. I'm not going to act like there's much of an actual canon in Mario games, but in order to prove that Toad exists, we're going to need to prove it through main series games. So to start, I'm going to refer to the most accurate source for any information about anything, fan wikis. The Super Mario Wiki has a list of Toad's appearances. Some of the entries on this list are just him being mentioned in instruction booklets, so taking these out of the equation, his appearances, according to this wiki, have been Super Mario Bros. 2, Super Mario 64 DS, Super Mario 3D World, Super Mario Maker, Super Mario Run, and Super Mario Maker 2. That's, well, if we're being honest, not really a lot. And it requires including games like Mario Maker, which are debatably canon. The Mario 64 appearance is actually kind of a retcon. The instruction manual of the original 64 claims Toad to be missing, but in 64DS it says that the first Toad you meet is the Toad. This feels flimsy, but hey, this looks like Toad, as much as any Toad can. I mean, we know that Toads have different coloured spots and often wear different coloured jackets. This Toad has the red spots and blue jacket that we are used to, so presumably that is Toad. But let's have a look at his other appearances, and oh wait, something is very weird here. I mean, sure, we have our classic Toad in 64 and Run, but other than that, things are considerably more blue. I mean, we do have these two appearances with 64 and Mario Run, but 64 seems to be more of a retcon than anything, and Mario Run as a mobile game is debatably canon, so other than that, Toad is blue? No, that's not right. Surely, right? As it happens, this isn't a clear-cut topic. We know that Toads with different spots are different individuals. The mushroom cap is never depicted as a hat in the main series or anything outside of the cartoons, so we can assume it is biologically part of them, and thus the spots are genetic. So if this Toad has red spots, and this Toad has blue spots, they must be different characters. However, this isn't the entire story. There is actually official artwork of Super Mario Bros. 2 where Toad is shown as our classic red spot, blue jacket friend, and this is how he is shown in the Super Mario Advance remake. But there's no getting around it. In the game, the original game, he is a blue Toad. And more to the point, they have doubled down on this. Starting in 3D World, Toad is depicted with blue spots. 3D World and Mario Maker 2 both have the playable Toad with blue spots. This is clearly meant to be a reference to the original Super Mario Bros. 2 Toad, as well as a handy development trick to make sure none of the characters have too similar a colour scheme, given multiplayer is a thing in this game. So maybe that's it. Maybe Toad is blue. Maybe that is just the canon. But no, come on. In spin-offs he's always red with a blue jacket. Always. Surely if they were suggesting that the canon Toad is blue, that would be what they would have in spin-offs as well. There's something deeper going on here. Okay, let's try and go through the main series games and figure out which ones could possibly feature this Toad. First off, Super Mario Bros. It's a common mistake to think that this Toad is the Toad, but this is a Toad retainer, and they are 8 separate Toads, each in one of the 8 castles. These are not the character of Toad, they're just a Toad. And actually, the fact that they wear a red jacket is kind of a tip-off to the fact that this isn't a Toad. Same goes for Super Mario Bros. 3. There are Toads in castles and in shops, but none seems to be the specific Toad we're looking for, and they wear red anyway. And then in Super Mario World, there aren't any Toads at all. We've already discussed Super Mario 64, and it's basically the same situation as the previous games, but what we haven't discussed is Sunshine, and in this game there are actually 6 specific Toads. The red, blue, yellow, green, and pink Toads, plus Toadsworth. This group of Toads accompanies Mario and friends on their adventures around the island, but obviously here the red and blue Toads are the ones we are most interested in. Could either of these be the Toad we are looking for? Well, Red Toad could be for sure. However, it should be noted that this Red Toad wears a red jacket, not a blue one, which makes it a bit less likely. Blue Toad also could be, but this was very firmly during the time when any suggestion of a character named Toad was a Red Toad, so it at least doesn't seem to be the intention. As it happens actually, we know that these Toads are not the Toad, mainly because we actually know who they are based on their next appearance, Super Mario Galaxy. It may or may not be obvious at this point, but it cannot be a coincidence that Sunshine and Galaxy both have 5 Toads together in a group with the same colours, and including the red Toad with a red jacket rather than the more iconic blue. That has to be deliberate. Yes, these Toads are in fact the Toad Brigade, at least it seems that's the intention, and that means that Captain Toad's first appearance was in Sunshine, not Galaxy. That's pretty crazy to me, because no one actually acknowledges this fact. This also confirms that neither the red or blue Sunshine Toad is a Toad. It has been confirmed that Captain Toad is a separate character from Toad, and from Galaxy onwards, the blue Toad Brigade member wears glasses where he doesn't otherwise. So it seems we're still left without much to point to in terms of a Toad appearance. Well, there is something that could be, but it's a bit ambiguous. In the opening storybook cutscene, a Toad is shown looking at a grand star, and this Toad has the red spots and blue jacket. He is alongside Toadette, her first main series appearance, so is this Toad? Maybe, but we actually see 2 more red Toads with blue jackets defending Peach, so it's just generic Toad attire in this game. The original New Super Mario Bros. Doesn't really have much to talk about in terms of Toads, as Toadsworth is the main Toad featured. However, New Super Mario Bros. Wii definitely does. Toads are pretty much everywhere, and in the opening cutscene we see this guy here. Red cap, blue jacket. It's our Toad, right? Oh, maybe not. Yeah, again, this seems to just be regular Toad attire in this game. The odd thing about this is that Captain Toad wears a red jacket in his first couple of appearances, so maybe it's that blue is the generic jacket colour for a red Toad and Captain Toad is just the exception. But then there's Super Mario 3D Land, where there's a yellow, blue and red Toad, and the red Toad has a red jacket. So is this a generic red Toad? Is it Captain Toad? This is after he becomes captain of the Toad Brigade, but he's not Captain Toad in this appearance. What about green and pink Toad Brigade members? This all seems like a big overreaction over a jacket, but the point is that there must be a reason for all this. If they wanted to make it so that there is a character known as Toad, then surely they would make him distinct. But there have been several instances where red Toads have been shown wearing the blue jacket, so if this is who they want to be the canon Toad, there's no distinguishing features, and he just blends in with other Toads in the same games. And we know that the canon Toad is not a red jacket Toad, as this has been directly shown to be Captain Toad, who is a separate character from Toad. And then there's Blue Toad, who they seem to be pushing as the canon Toad in the main series, but they've almost entirely failed to actually acknowledge this character in spin-offs. Can it actually be that the character of Toad and the iconic character we think of when we hear the name are different characters? Well, the thing is, even Blue Toad isn't definitively the canon Toad, because in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and by extension New Super Mario Bros. U, we once again have the Blue Toad reference, except he is now referred to as Blue Toad. In Super Mario Bros. 2 and 3D World, Blue Toad is just referred to as Toad, which is the main evidence for him being the canon Toad. But here he is referred to as Blue Toad, suggesting that he is not, in fact, called Toad, but is just a Toad, and that when there is more than one Toad, he is referred to by colour, just like the Yellow Toad. We don't know this guy's real name, but we can refer to him as Blue Toad, meaning that he isn't Toad. So who the hickety heck is Toad? This is all very confusing, and I think it can be summed up pretty easily by something I said earlier. I'm not going to act like there's much of an actual canon in Mario games. At the end of the day, canon in Mario is incredibly loose, and realistically, the answer to who Toad actually is can be summed up as whoever Nintendo want it to be in any given game. Sometimes they want it to be a red Toad with a blue jacket. Sometimes they want it to be a blue Toad. Sometimes they want it to be no Toad at all, just the species, and sometimes they'll rebrand a Toad who was just a generic Toad into being the Toad, or they might change the colour of the spots. None of it matters because Mario isn't a franchise defined by canon, and Toad being both the name of a species and a character means they can treat the concept as either or both, and do whatever they want. Every iteration of Toad can be a completely reimagined version. This can also go for Yoshi, Luma, Birdo, and any number of characters in the franchise that have the name of their species. But that's kind of a boring answer, so here's the conclusion I prefer. There is a character whose name is Toad. He's the character you play as in Mario Kart and all the multiplayer spin-offs, and he probably has appearances in RPG spin-offs that I don't care about too. This is also the Toad that is in the upcoming Mario movie. But this Toad is not canon to the main series. The only example you can point to of a singular Toad with a red cap and a blue jacket is Super Mario Run, and I don't think that should be considered main series. This Toad, red cap, blue jacket, is essentially a generic representation of Toads for the purposes of spin-offs. There are, however, singular Toads that appear in the main series, two specific ones that have at times been thought to be the canon Toad, but who are their own individual characters. These are, of course, Captain Toad and Blue Toad. Initially, Blue Toad was considered to be the canon Toad, however, over time that's been retconned and he's his own individual character. Captain Toad, meanwhile, has not even been considered the same as Toad, but it was easy to make the mistake. And that's that. Toad is an incredibly confusing character, without any clear definition on who exactly he is, or whether he exists at all. All we really know is that he has an incredibly annoying voice in Mario Kart 64.